continuing with the parables. Today we want to look at the parable of the landowner. Sometimes you might hear it described as the parable of the tenants. But it's found in Matthew chapter 21. Matthew chapter 21. And in Matthew chapter 21, if you look at the setting, it describes the last week of Christ. It is working its way into the last week of Christ. This story follows the triumphal entry that you see in verses 1 through 10. You see the cleansing of the temple the same day, verses 12 and 13. And the Pharisees are becoming increasingly indignant to the claims of Christ to be God in the flesh. You see that in verse 15. They're tired of hearing the cries of Hosanna, not only that they heard when Jesus came on the triumphal entry, but again this day as the children are singing out Hosanna, the Son of God, Son of David. It's clearly a messianic call, and the Pharisees demanded that Christ quiet the children singing the praises to him. You see that in verse 16. And yet even the Pharisees couldn't explain away the healing of the sick, blind, and lame, and the teaching that Jesus had. Verse 14. So, after all of this on a very busy day, Jesus goes to Bethany that night and comes back the next morning. As he's entering the temple, he's confronted, surprisingly enough, or not surprisingly enough, by the Pharisees again. When he returned to Jerusalem. And at that point, the Pharisees then issued a challenge to Christ's authority. A challenge to Christ's authority. If you have your notes on the back of your bulletin, that'll help you keep track of where we're at, and hopefully give you something to look at later. But the challenge to his authority begins in verse 23. Let's take a quick look at this. Verse 23, when he entered the temple, the chief priests and the elders of the people came to him while he was teaching, and had said, "By what authority are you doing these things, and who gave you this authority?" You see, the temple was their domain. It's where they rule. It's where they got to tell people what to do. And so they demanded to know where Jesus got his authority from. They obviously had not given him the authority to teach. They hadn't given him the authority to heal. They hadn't given him the authority to receive the praises of Hosanna, the Son of David. Just who did this guy think he was anyway? Instead of answering the question directly, Jesus asked them a question regarding John the Baptist and his ministry. You see, he knew where their hearts were. He knew where they were coming from, and he understood what a problem that this could be. Well, you'll see in those verses from 23 to 27 that they couldn't answer Jesus' question because he presented a question to them about John the Baptist's ministry and his baptism. And he said, "You answer me this, and I'll answer you." And they said, "Well, I can't answer that. We can't answer that." And he said, "Okay, well, I don't have to answer you then." Well, that made no happen, right? So Jesus instead teaches them a parable. Really, he teaches them two parables. The first one is the parable of the two sons, which we're going to jump over, and we're going to go to the parable of the landowner, the parable of the tenants. So he teaches them in a parable. Let's begin looking at this parable in verse 33. So we're in Matthew chapter 21. Let's read verses 33 to 39 together. And Jesus begins by saying, listen to another parable. The first one was the parable of the two sons. There was a landowner who planted a vineyard, put a wall around it, and dug a winepress in it, and built a tower. And he rented it out to vine growers, and he went on a journey. When the harvest time approached, he sent slaves to the vine growers to receive his produce. The vine growers took his slaves, beat one, killed another, stoned a third. Again, he sent another group of slaves, larger than the first, and they did the same thing to them. But afterwards, he sent his son to them, saying, "Hey, what's back, son? When the vinegrowers saw the son, they said among themselves, "This is the heir. Come now, let us kill him and seize his inheritance." They took him. They threw him out of the vineyard and they killed him. In this parable, we see the following characters. We'll get into what this means. Let's get an idea who the characters are. And in the characters, by the way, if we missed that one, this is the parable of the landowner. And the characters are the landowner. In this case, the landowner is God. He's the one who planted the vineyard. He's the one who built the wall around it, the tower above it. He's the vineyard owner. The vineyard is the nation of Israel. Many times in the Old Testament, you see Israel portrayed as a vineyard. If you want to put this in your notes, Isaiah chapter 5 and Isaiah chapter 8. I don't believe I put those in there for you, but Isaiah 5 and Isaiah 8 describe God being the owner of the vineyard, which is the nation of Israel. You see the workers who are the Pharisees in this case. We'll show you where that comes from. All right, that's not a stretch. It's not my imagination. It's really over here. We'll show you where. Okay? And then you have the servants of the landowner. Since God is the landowner, who are the servants in the Old Testament who He sent to the nation of Israel? The prophets, right? And what happened to the prophets? They beat some, they mistreated others, they killed some. Right? They're the servants of the landowner, the Old Testament prophets. And of course, the Son is Jesus. So God finally sent His Son, His only Son, to the nation of Israel. You see, Jesus was telling a story to them about what they had done to God, the rightful owner of the nation of Israel. He described to them how their forefathers treated the servants and the messengers of God as the prophets. He described to them how He was God's only Son, the Messiah. And did you notice in the parable the rightful heir to all that God possessed? That is the kingdom of God. And this is the king that the Pharisees said they were praying for and looking for. And when He arrived, they completely rejected Him. Following this parable that Jesus had just told them, he turns to them and He asks them a second question. He asks them a second question. And this all ties into the parable. And in this description of the neglect of the religious leaders of His day to obey or follow or give God what was rightfully His, Jesus asked them this question. Look at verses 40 and 41. Let's read that together. He says to them when He finishes telling them about this, "Therefore, when the owner of the vineyard comes, what will He do to those vine growers?" And they answered and said to Him, "He will bring those wretches to a wretched end, and He will rent out the vineyard to another vine grower who will pay Him the proceeds at the proper seasons." You see, the Pharisees had no problem understanding what this parable was about. Even if you just take it at a surface level, if a vine grower or a landowner owns a property and he rents it out, he's expected to get payment on that property. And those people who mistreat his representatives deserve to be judged. Just at a base level, it's easy to understand this parable. But also they noticed the need for justice and punishment of those evil workers who had clearly stolen from a rightful landowner, and who had clearly mistreated his servants, and who had clearly killed his son. They even understood the need for that justice, the need for right to be done in this case. That they had completely and wrongfully treated the landowner. What they didn't understand at this point was in pronouncing judgment on them in the story, they were ultimately pronouncing judgment on themselves. Maybe you can liken this to an Old Testament story, and you'll have to take a look at this later. We don't have time to go into it now. But do you remember when David stole Bathsheba? Do you remember when he had Uriah, her husband, killed? And there was an Old Testament prophet who boldly went and talked to David about this. And David told the story, if a parable, if you will. And do you remember what that parable was about? That there was this man that owned this huge flock, and that he could have had his choice from any of the flock that he owned. And yet there was this one poor man who only had one ewe lamb that he loved dearly. And this rich man stole this one ewe lamb, and he had it killed. And David was enraged by this story. And Nathan had the courage to stand before the king and say, "You are the man." See, this is not the first time that a parable has been told about the judgment of those who were spoken to. The Pharisees, just like David, understood that they were pronouncing judgment, and they're going to come to understand that they were pronouncing judgment on themselves. In this, Jesus brings in another metaphor, another story. And you see that in that, he's clearly claiming to be the Messiah. We're going to tie all these ends together. So just hold on. We're going to tie this all up. Okay, look at verse 42. Jesus said to them, "Did you never read in the Scriptures?" I just want to pause there for a minute. Does this kind of seem like a dig to you? Who's he talking to? The Pharisees. They're the teachers of the law. And he says to them, "Did you never read the Scriptures?" He understands what's coming. This is the last week of his life. He's already told the apostles, the disciples at that time, "I'm going to go to Jerusalem. I'm going to be handed over to the authorities who are going to deliver me to the Roman authorities, and they're going to kill me." Jesus knows exactly what's going on. He was not a victim of his circumstance. He was faithful to the Lord. He clearly understood what was going on. But he says to them, "Did you ever read the Scriptures?" In verse 42 it says, "The stone which the builders rejected, this became the chief cornerstone. This came about from the Lord, and it is marvelous in our eyes." This is a quote from a messianic psalm. Lately, especially the last 6 months, the Psalms have taken on a whole new meaning for me. And this is clearly a messianic psalm, and so did the pilgrims, by the pilgrims. When I say pilgrims, I mean those who were going to Jerusalem for the feasts and the festivals, that they were required to go to at least 3 times a year. And they would sing this messianic song on the ascent to Jerusalem. And in Psalm 118, this is specifically verses 22 and 23. So Jesus quotes to them this messianic psalm. He says, "Have you never read in the Scriptures that there is this stone which the builders rejected, that it became the chief cornerstone, at which everything else is measured off of? It became the most important stone in the building." We see this cornerstone description in many other places regarding the Messiah, who is Christ, and we see it applied even in the church. But in Isaiah 28:16, it says, "Therefore says the Lord God, behold, I lay in Zion a stone, a tested stone, a costly cornerstone for the foundation, firmly placed. He who believes in it will not be disturbed." Paul understood and described the preeminence of Christ as the cornerstone in the church in Ephesians 2:20 and 21. And he's describing a church, and he says, having been built on the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Christ Jesus himself being the cornerstone, in whom the whole building is fitted together and is growing into a holy temple of the Lord. It's referenced by the early church in their description of Jesus as the chief cornerstone. In case I didn't put this in your notes, I think I did. Acts 4:11 and 1 Peter 2:7. Go through and read those, and you'll see the same conversation about Jesus being the chief cornerstone. And this description of him as the chief cornerstone is a messianic title found all the way back in the book of Isaiah and also all the way back in the Psalms. That this Messiah will be the chief cornerstone. The claim of Christ to be the Son of God, the Messiah, was clearly understood by the Pharisees by this time. And in his rightful position as the Messiah, the heir of the landowner, God himself, you see this. You see that Jesus pronounces judgment on the Pharisees. Jesus pronounces judgment on the Pharisees. You see, having dealt with the question of authority in this parable, Jesus now turns the tables on the Pharisees. Because you remember, this is a direct answer to the question that they were asked. Who gave you the authority to do this? Who do you think you are? We don't recognize you. We don't recognize your authority. We don't recognize that you're the Son of God. We don't recognize you're the Messiah. Who do you think you are? You didn't get that authority from us. You didn't come from the proper channels. Jesus now turns the tables on the Pharisees and declares to them that they were the ones who were going to be judged, that they are the ones who are out of authority, that they are the ones who have, like the workers, usurped the position and are trying to steal what is not theirs. Look at verses 43 and 44. Jesus tells them, "Therefore I say to you, the kingdom of God will be taken away from you and given to a people producing the fruit of it. And he who falls on the stone will be broken into pieces, but on whoever it falls, it will scatter him like dust." I want you to notice something about this passage. Does it matter whether you fall on the stone or the stone falls on you? You're going to be broken either way. Let's just acknowledge that. Right? But doesn't David also tell us to broken and contrite heart, the Lord will not despise? You see, David, if we're going to tie this back into Nathan the prophet going to David and saying, "You're the man." David understood that God would not reject a broken heart and contrite spirit. You see, when we come to Christ, we will be broken. We're going to have to give up some of our own desires, some of our own dreams, some of our own plans, some of our own ambitions, some of our own will. Our will has to be bent to broken sometimes to God's will. But that is far better than the alternative. That is far better than the alternative of having that stone fall on you and you be scattered to dust. You see, God will not despise a broken and contrite spirit. And while the Pharisees believed they were the ones with authority, they were the ones that were going to talk to him, they were the ones that were going to set him straight, they are actually the ones who are going to be scattered like dust, according to Jesus. They are the ones who are going to be crushed. He pronounces judgment on those as the one who is really in authority. He let them know, I'm the rightful heir. I'm the rightful son. I am the king's son. He possessed the authority that they were attempting to usurp. He was the rightful heir to the possessions of God, and he described what was going to happen to them very clearly. In that, we see the reaction of the Pharisees. The reaction of the Pharisees. Let's look at verses 45 and 46. When the chief priests and the Pharisees heard this parable, they understood that he was speaking what? About them. Do you see how we're tying these characters together? Do you see why we said that God is the owner of the vineyard, that the nation is Israel, that the workers are his prophets, that the tenants, if you will, are the Pharisees, and that Jesus is the Son? You see how all this ties together? They understood that Jesus told this parable and that they are the evil workers who were trying to steal what was not theirs, usurp what they couldn't have, and kill the Son. When they heard this parable, they understood that he was speaking about them. You might underline, if you do this in your Bible, and you know I'm a big fan of this. They heard, they understood about it. They heard it, they understood it, they knew he was talking about them. And here's where we have to tie some of this together. Are they going to fall on the stone that they've rejected and be broken? Or is the stone going to fall on them and they meet the ultimate judgment? Look at verse 46. When they sought to seize him. You ever been so mad at somebody you just want to grab them by the collar or maybe by the throat? Do you see that in this passage? They understood. They heard, they understood that it was about him, and they wanted to seize him. How dare you talk to us that way? Who do you think you are? Don't you know that we receive the praises on the street corner? Don't you know that we get the best positions at the feast? Don't you know that everybody wants our attention? Don't you know that we're the most respected people in town? Who do you think you are talking to us that way? When they sought to seize him, they feared the people, because they, the people, considered him to be a prophet. You see, Jesus didn't tell this story in some corner where they could do what they wanted to do. This was in the temple. And there were lots of buildings in town. This is Passover, right? Fast forward this story, okay? Spoiler alert. Right? They killed Jesus. He resurrected. 50 days later was Pentecost. There were still literally thousands and thousands of people in Jerusalem, and 3,000 people were saved that day. This was not an obscure place in the temple. They decided to confront him head on, and he gave it right back to them. And he told them, and they heard, and they understand that it was about him, and they wanted to seize him. You see, sometimes you get that reaction from people when you tell them the truth about God's word. It angers them. They understood they were the ones standing in judgment, and that only intensified their anger towards him. And again, they were looking for a way to seize him and to kill him. But they feared the people, because not even they could deny the words and the words of God that were coming from him. If you look earlier in this chapter, it says he was healing the sick, he was healing the blind, he was healing the lame. Right? That's what prompted the question. Where did you get this authority from? Not even the Pharisees could deny what was happening. And yet they still found their trade. They arranged their false courts at the end of this week. They pressed their made-up charges, and they found an innocent man guilty, all because of their love for power, their love for prestige, their love for their position, and their love for their possessions. They didn't want to give any of that. They did to Christ what was told in the parable. They cast him outside of Jerusalem. They killed him on a cross, and they sealed their own doom. Now that stone was going to fall on them and crush them in pieces. Do you remember in the parable it says they took the heir, the son, they cast him outside of the vineyard, and they killed him there? Where was Jesus taken when he was put on the cross?
Outside of the city.
Outside of the city. Jesus even foretold his own death in this parable. Thankfully, you don't have to. By the way, these are not in your notes. Please write these down. Hebrews 13:12 is a really good example of what happened there. Hebrews 13:12 for you to look up. Thankfully, you don't have to share in the punishment. That is the punishment of the Pharisees. They believe they had won. You have to understand, when they killed Jesus, they believed they had won. They retained their power. They retained their position. They retained their possession. They retained everything they thought they wanted to keep. Because now this troublemaker was gone. But God declared before the world began that the sacrifice of Christ would pay the price for your sins. Do you remember the Bible tells us that he was the lamb slain before the foundation of the world? You see, Jesus was not a victim of circumstances. I keep saying that. But there's a real misconception in the church that he just, was a victim of his circumstances. That was what happened in those times. There was nothing he could do with it. No, he marched to it. That will help you put the garden in perspective. Lord, not my will, but yours be done. He knew what God's will was. He knew what God's plan was. He knew where he was going. But how many of us want to volunteer for that? You see, he was the one who paid the price for our sins. And because of his payment, it becomes a free gift to us. We can't earn it. We can't ever repay it. We can't buy it, sell it, or give it away. It becomes a free gift to you if you simply accept that gift described to us in John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him will not perish but have eternal life. And we talk about the gospel every week. So help me out here, okay? When we talk about the gospel, we break it down into 4 parts. And we say the first one is, God loves you, but a problem called sin, and Jesus is the answer. Will you accept him? It's that simple. You see, I'm not arguing with Jesus when he said God loves the world. You know what? God loves the world. I'm not arguing with that. Because I'm part of that world. So are you. But you do wrong things, I do wrong things, we all do something wrong. And the wrong things that we do are called sin. And sin has a punishment according to Romans 6:23. The wages of sin is death. I don't want to cash that paycheck. But Romans 6:23, the second half of that verse says, but the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord. See, Jesus is the answer. He died on the cross for your sins, my sins, and anybody else's sins. You will accept it. Will you? I can't make that decision for you. Your parents can't make it for you. Your grandparents can't make it for you. All right? The church can't do it for you. You have to come to the point where you accept Jesus Christ for yourself. You understand that you are a sinner in need of salvation. And the sins that you committed are against the holy God, and there's Christ to be paid for those sins. And you go, Lord, thank you for the sacrifice of Christ on behalf of my sins. If you don't know Christ as Savior, don't leave here today without knowing Him. You're not guaranteed today. You're not guaranteed today. James Boyce tells of the conclusions of a turn-of-the-century preacher named William Taylor. And he wrote about this parable. And in this we see William Taylor's 3 greatest points. 3 greatest points. And I thought they were really good. So I'm going to read them to you. Right? The first one of these three greatest points is the greatest privilege. And you might write down next to this. This greatest privilege is to have the kingdom of God entrusted to us. The kingdom of God entrusted to us. That's the greatest privilege. This is what happens when the kingdom of God is preached. It's placed within our grasp for receiving, feeding on, and entering into. Greatest privilege is the kingdom of God entrusted in us. The second point is the greatest sin. The greatest sin. And according to William Taylor, quote, this is to reject that kingdom. This is to reject that kingdom. Which is to reject Jesus Christ. Jesus is not here today for us to kill him, but we do what we can unless we're made anew by God. We reject his claim, and above all, we reject his lordship in our lives. So the greatest privilege is to have the kingdom of God entrusted to us. The greatest sin is to reject that kingdom. And third, William Taylor talks about the greatest to do. Greatest to do. And that is, quote, to be crushed by the kingdom of that very Christ. To be crushed by the kingdom. Who is that very Christ? Who is offered to us in salvation. When Jesus refers to being crushed by this stone, the stone is Christ. So Jesus is saying that you can be part of the kingdom and thus grow up with me and fill the earth. That will happen by decree of the Most High God, my Father. Or you can stand against that kingdom and be broken. End quote. So his three great points. The greatest privilege is to have the kingdom of God entrusted to us. The greatest sin is to reject the kingdom. And the greatest doom is to be crushed by the kingdom of Christ. I thought that was really good. He concludes this by saying in this quote, the judgment of God is not to be taken lightly, because God is not to be taken lightly. The God who offers salvation now is the God who will judge in righteousness hereafter. If you will not have him now as Savior in the day of his grace, you will have him as your judge when you stand before him at the final throne, at the throne of the final judgment. And you've heard me say that before. You can trust Christ as Savior, or you can stand before Christ as Judge. Are you going to fall on the stone and be broken? Or is the stone going to fall on you and be crushed? Those are your choices. In another book, really well done, a man by the name of Simon Kistemaker wrote a book called Parables of Jesus. And again, instead of reinventing the wheel, I'm just going to read what he wrote. And he says this, quote, what is the point of the parable? Jesus teaches that seemingly endless patience of God is extended towards those who oppose him. When this patience ends at the rejection of his Son, God's swift retribution is sure to follow. This passage proclaims a message of assurance and confidence to the faithful follower of Jesus. Even though the church may experience adverse times, Jesus Christ is the eternal King whose victory is certain. In the words of a confession from the 16th century, this church has existed from the beginning of the world and will last until the end. That appears from the fact that Christ is the eternal King, from which it follows that he cannot be without subjects. And this holy church is preserved by God against the rage of the whole world. It shall never be destroyed. You see, when Jesus was talking to Peter, he made a proclamation that was very important. Jesus says, I will build my church, and the gates of will what? Not prevail against it. You see, we have to understand who the rightful owner is, who the rightful servants are, what our position is, where we can serve the King or be judged by him. So what do we do with this? What do we do with this? Well, it's simply that. Are you a faithful servant in God's vineyard? Are you going to be a faithful servant in God's vineyard? Are you going to give God what he's due? Are you going to not try to usurp his authority? Or are you not going to try to take his place? Or are you not going to be part and parcel of killing his son? Which part are you going to be? What part are you going to play? Are you going to give him what is due to him? Or are you going to be the one who's stealing from God and seeking your own desires? You see, the landowner is the rightful owner. The heir was the rightful heir. Anybody else is simply trying to steal from God and what is due to him. If we don't understand our proper place and our proper position in God's kingdom. Are you a faithful servant of God's kingdom? Are you doing the job he sent you to do? Let's pray.